All right, y'all. We're getting ready for this test on Thursday for some of you and Fridays for other of you. So we're going to do this review a little bit differently. All right? So I'm going to tell you what you all need to write down, but I'm actually not going to write it down. You're going to write it down on paper. So if you need to pause so that you can write these things down, the information that I give you, make sure you do that. And I'm just going to be looking on paper. Did you write down the things that I told you to write down? Okay? So go ahead and put today's date, which is 2/18. And we are reviewing for Springboard. Okay? So first thing you need to know is you need to know domain and range. So you should write those two words down. Domain and range. Domain is basically a collection. So you can write this down. It's a collection of all the x values in your graph. All of it that goes left to right, because that's where the x-axis goes, left to right. So it's a collection of all the x values in a graph, or on a table, or in a chart, or in a mapping, or all the inputs, the x values. Domain is the collection of all the x values in a graph, a map, or a table. So range is a collection, so again, you should be writing this down. Range is a collection of all the y values in a graph, a map, or a table. In other words, going up and down. What are all those values that are possible? So there's your definition for domain and range, okay? So you're going to draw a graph, right? Your first graph is going to look like this. We'll call this graph A. Then you're going to draw the second graph. We'll call it graph B. And it's going to look like this. So draw those two graphs. This graph right here is discrete. So under here you should write discrete. And the definition that I want you to write down for a discrete graph is a graph that just has separate individual points. They are not connected. That's the definition I want you to write for a discrete graph. This graph right here is continuous. The definition I want you to write next to the continuous graph says a collection of points that are all connected by a line. So it's one line that continues going. That's why this graph is continuous. You have this line that continues. This is discrete. It's just some different points. So you should make sure that you've written those two definitions down. From there, then, the domain and the range for a discrete graph is just a collection of points. So let's say this was the point, let's say -3, 4, -5, 7, and let's say this point is -2, -6. We'll call this point 1, -4. We'll call this point 1, 5, and we'll call this point 3, 7. Okay? The domain for a discrete graph is all the x values, just a list. Okay? So the domain of this, I take the x values. So I see, got a -2, I got a -3, I have a -5, I have a 1, I have a 1, and so forth. Okay, I didn't finish it. The range is just a list of the y values. So I got a -6, I got a 4, I have a 7, I have a 5, I have another 7 which I've written, and and I have a negative 4. Okay? There's my domain and my range, because it's only those particular spots. That's where all the action is. Going left and right is my x values, x value, x value, x value. Going up and down is y values. Here, in the continuous, the domain and range cover all the points, right? So domain starts here. Here's my first point for domain, and I got action all the way to here. All my action happens between here and here, right? There's some part of the line everywhere between there and there, going the x-coordinate. So that's my domain. So let's say if this point was negative 5 on the x-axis, and this point right here, we'll say, is 4, right? X is everything that's greater than or equal to negative 5 and less than or equal to 4. That's my domain. My range now is all my up and down action, right? So the farthest it goes down is right here. The farthest it goes up is right here. So it's all my action between here and here. So if I say on y, this is negative 8 and this is positive 4, y is greater than negative 8 and less than or equal to positive 4. Okay? Domain and range, finding where's my action up and down, where's my action left and right. We got continuous, we got discrete, we got a lot of stuff. Okay? Finding, first of all, slope. You need to know all the different ways you can represent slope. First one you should write over here is rise over run. Slope is rise over run. Second thing you should write, so rise over run. Then you should write change in x over the change in y, because that means slope too. Then right here you should write, which also equals vertical change over horizontal change. Rise, which is the change in y. Excuse me, I think I totally said it wrong. Rise over run, this one to make sure it's correct should be change in y over change in x. I think I might have just said that wrong. Rise over run, change in y over change in x, which is also, right here, vertical change, you should be writing this down, over horizontal change. Which is also right here, another way to say it, right? We have vertical over horizontal, we got rise over run, and over here we got delta y. This means change in y over change in x, delta x. Change in. All of these say the same thing, and they're all different ways to represent the slope. Then you also need the slope formula. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. You can use that. Write that down. Make sure you write down the slope formula. Okay? I think those are the big pieces that you need to know. I would go through, I suggest, you go through your springboard. I'm going to attach I'm going to attach all the pages from the book for 2.2 and 2.3. I would go through those and read them over and check them out. I would look back in my springboard notebook to make sure that it's all correct. All right? These are big things that you need to know. Make sure you practice. Make sure you study. Look over work that you've done in the past. I want to see you all do well on this next test. I'm out.